Imagine a world untouched by time, a primal Earth where oceans roared under a sky unscarred by human hands. Jungles stretched endlessly, and creatures roamed that would seem monstrous to us today. It was into this untamed wilderness, 445,000 years ago, that a shadow fell not of storm or beast, but of something far stranger. Celestial chariots, gleaming with an otherworldly light, pierced the heavens and splashed into the depths of an ancient sea. These were no ordinary visitors. They were the Anunnaki, a race from a distant planet called Nibiru, driven by a desperate need that would reshape the destiny of our world. Their mission was clear: to harvest gold, a metal vital to their survival. But in their pursuit, they would do something far more profound. They would create mankind itself. The Anunnaki hailed from Nibiru, a planet unlike any in our solar system. Its orbit was vast, a 3,600-year ellipse that swung it from the sun's fiery embrace to the icy voids of deep space. Nibiru was a world of extremes, warmed by volcanic eruptions that sustained a dense, life-giving atmosphere. Yet that atmosphere was failing. The shield that protected Nibiru from the sun's harsh rays and cosmic cold was thinning, threatening the survival of its people. The Anunnaki discovered that gold, ground into a fine powder and dispersed into the atmosphere, could reflect sunlight and stabilize their planet's climate. But gold was scarce on Nibiru, and their search led them to Earth, a blue-green world teeming with untapped resources. Leading this expedition was Enki, a figure of towering intellect and unyielding ambition. His name, meaning "he whose home is water," reflected his affinity for the seas and his role as a master of knowledge. Enki was the firstborn son of Anu, the king of Nibiru, but he was not destined to rule. That honor belonged to his half-brother, Enlil, a fact that would spark rivalry for millennia. Enki was no warrior. He was a scientist, a visionary who saw possibilities where others saw limits. As his chariot touched down in the marshy shores of what we now call the Persian Gulf, he surveyed the alien landscape with a mind already racing towards solutions. The Anunnaki named their first outpost Eridu, meaning home in the far away. It was a settlement born of necessity, a foothold in a world they barely understood. Eridu was no mere campit, was a hub of advanced technology, complete with a command center, a spaceport for their celestial chariots, and even a way station on the red planet they called Lamu, known to us as Mars. The Anunnaki were not here to conquer or colonize in the human sense. Their goal was extraction, a relentless quest for the golden veins they believed lay hidden in Earth's waters and soil. Teams of Anunnaki laborers toiled in the marshes, sifting through mud and water to collect the precious metal. But the work was grueling, the yields disappointing, and murmurs of discontent began to ripple through their ranks. The laborers, though advanced beyond human comprehension, were not infinite in number. Their tools, powered by crystals and firestones, could only do so much. The marshes yielded copper and iron in abundance, but gold, the lifeblood of Nibiru's survival, remained elusive. The Anunnaki faced a crisis. They needed a workforce capable of enduring Earth's harsh conditions, one that could multiply and sustain itself. It was in this moment of desperation that Enki's genius shone brightest. As he wandered the plains near Eridu, he observed the hominid's primitive, ape-like creatures that roamed the land. They were not like the Anunnaki, with their towering intellect and godlike abilities, but they had potential. Enki saw in them a canvas, a raw material that could be shaped into something greater. In a facility deep within Eridu, Enki convened with his sister, Ninhursag, the chief medical officer of the Anunnaki. Ninhursag, whose name meant Lady of the Sacred Mountain, was a master of life's mysteries, her knowledge rivaling Enki's own. Together, they embarked on a project that would defy the natural order. They gathered hominids from the wild, studying their form and essence. Using techniques that blended science with what we might call magic, they extracted the genetic material of these creatures. Enki called upon the ancient knowledge of Nibiru, where the manipulation of life was an art honed over eons. In a chamber lit by the glow of crystalline devices, they wove together the essence of the hominids with that of the Anunnaki, creating a hybrid being unlike any that had walked the earth. The first to emerge from this experiment was Adamu, a name that would echo through time as the Adam of ancient texts. He was not born of a womb but crafted in a chamber of creation, his body a fusion of earth and Nibiru. Taller than his hominid ancestors, with a sharper mind, Adamu could understand commands and perform complex tasks, yet he was not perfect. Enki and Ninhursag soon discovered that Adamu was sterile, unable to reproduce. This was a critical flaw, for the Anunnaki needed a self-sustaining workforce. Enki returned to his laboratory, his mind ablaze with new possibilities. Ninhursag proposed a daring solution, a second genetic modification to grant the ability to procreate. Together, they crafted a female counterpart to Adamu, whom they named Tiamat, meaning Mother of Life. In a ceremony shrouded in mystery, they infused her with additional chromosomal codes, enabling her to bear children. Tiamat was the key to a new race, one that could multiply and serve the Anunnaki's needs. Enki later wrote that this act was both a triumph and a transgression. He had crossed a line, creating a species that could one day challenge its creators. The humans, as Enki called them, were born not of chance, but of divine intent, their very existence a testament to the Anunnaki's power over life itself. The creation of mankind sparked heated debate among the Anunnaki. Enlil, now the commander of the Earth mission, viewed the humans with suspicion. To him, they were tools nothing more than obedient workers to mine gold and serve their masters. Enlil's vision was one of order, where the Anunnaki reigned as gods and humans remained subservient. Enki, however, saw something more. He believed the humans could learn, grow, and perhaps one day grasp the secrets of their creators. This philosophical divide would shape the future of Earth, setting the stage for conflicts that would span centuries. As the first humans multiplied, Enki took on the role of their guardian. He taught them to build shelters from reeds, to cultivate plants in the fertile soils of the Edin, and to mine gold from the marshes. Eridu became a place where the divine and mortal mingled, a crucible of creation where the Anunnaki walked among their creations. The humans, whom the Anunnaki called Earthlings, gazed upon their makers with awe, seeing them as gods who wielded powers beyond comprehension. These early interactions were recorded on clay tablets, their stories passed down through generations, becoming the myths of Sumer, Egypt, and beyond. The tale of Adamu and Tiamat, for instance, found its way into the Hebrew Bible as the story of Adam and Eve, the Garden of Eden, a distant memory of Eridu's lush marshes. But Enki's ambitions went beyond mere labor. He saw in the humans a spark of potential, a capacity for wisdom that rivaled the Anunnaki themselves. In a bold and controversial move, he began to share knowledge with his creations. He entrusted certain humans those he deemed worthy with the Me, a collection of divine laws and technologies encoded on crystalline discs. These discs held the blueprints of civilization, agriculture, architecture, mathematics, and the art of writing. The chosen humans, the first priests and scribes, became the keepers of this sacred knowledge, their writings laying the foundation for the first cities of Sumer. Enki's actions were a gift, but they came at a cost. Enlil saw this sharing of knowledge as a betrayal, a reckless act that could destabilize the Anunnaki's control over Earth. As the centuries passed, the humans thrived under Enki's guidance. Their settlements spread across the Edin, their numbers growing in the fertile crescent between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. But their rapid proliferation brought new challenges. The Anunnaki, accustomed to the long lifespans of Nibiru, struggled to adapt to Earth's shorter cycles. The humans, though mortal, were prolific, their villages blossoming into towns. Enlil began to see them not as assets but as a potential threat. He argued that their numbers must be controlled, their freedoms curtailed. Enki, ever the protector of his creations, resisted. He believed the humans deserved a chance to forge their own path, to become more than mere servants. This tension between Enki and Enlil would soon erupt into conflict, but beneath it lay a deeper mystery. Why had the Anunnaki chosen Earth? Was gold their only goal? or was there a greater purpose? Some among the humans, those gifted with the me, began to whisper of hidden agendas. They spoke of ancient tablets, dictated by Enki to his chosen scribe, Adapa, a human of remarkable intellect. These tablets, carved from lapis lazuli, were said to hold the secrets of the Anunnaki's origins, their conflicts, and their plans for Earth. They spoke of a time when Nibiru would return, its orbit bringing it close to Earth once more, heralding a day of reckoning for both gods and mortals. The creation of mankind was not just a scientific triumph, but a turning point in the cosmos. Enki, the architect of this new race, had set in motion a chain of events that would challenge the very order of the universe. His actions would lead to rebellion, betrayal, and a deluge that would nearly erase humanity from existence. But they would also give rise to the first civilizations, to stories that would endure through the ages, and to questions that linger to this day. Who were the Anunnaki, truly? Were they gods, aliens, or something beyond our understanding? And what secrets did they leave behind, buried in the sands of time, waiting to be uncovered? Enki stood in Eridu, watching his creations take their first steps toward destiny. The gold they mined would save Nibiru, but at what cost to Earth? The humans, born of his ingenuity, carried within them a spark of the Anunnaki, a spark that could one day ignite a fire to rival the heavens. Yet, as Enki gazed across the marshes, he sensed the gathering storm. Forces were aligning, divine and mortal, brother against brother, that would test the bonds of creation and the fate of worlds. The story of mankind's birth was only the beginning, a prelude to a saga that would unfold across millennia, its echoes resonating in the myths and mysteries of our own time. If this tale of ancient secrets and cosmic origins intrigues you, hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Mystery History for Sleep to uncover more mysteries with me, Mr. H. The marshes of Eridu shimmered under the sun, a cradle of life where mankind first drew breath under the watchful eyes of the Anunnaki. For millennia, the humans toiled, their hands pulling gold from the earth to fuel the survival of Nibiru, the distant homeworld of their creators. Cities rose in the Fertile Crescent, their mud-brick walls etched with tales of gods who walked among men. But beneath this veneer of progress, a storm was brewing, a storm not of wind or water, but of ambition, rivalry, and forbidden power. Around 4,000 years ago, the Anunnaki, those celestial beings from Nibiru, unleashed a catastrophe that would scar the earth and echo through the ages. This was no natural disaster. It was a nuclear holocaust, born of divine wrath and mortal suffering, that laid waste to the ancient civilization of Sumer. The seeds of this calamity were sown long before the first cities of Sumer, Uruk, and Nippur stood proud. The Anunnaki, though advanced beyond human comprehension, were not immune to the flaws that plague all intelligent beings. Enki, the creator of mankind, had gifted humanity with knowledge, planting the seeds of civilization. His half-brother Enlil, Lord of the Command, saw this as a dangerous indulgence. To Enlil, humans were tools, meant to serve and obey, not to rise as partners to their gods. The growing cities, with their temples and ziggurats, were a testament to Enki's vision, but they also fueled Enlil's unease. The humans were multiplying too quickly, their ambitions swelling beyond the mines and fields where they labored. At the heart of this growing tension was a new generation of Anunnaki, born on Earth, and shaped by its cycles. Unlike their elders, who measured time by the long orbits of Nibiru, these younger gods were restless, their loyalties divided between their ancestral home and the world they now inhabited. Among them was Marduk, Enki's firstborn son, a figure of charisma and ambition who dreamed of ruling Earth in his own right. Marduk's rise stirred resentment, particularly among Enlil's children, Ninurta and Nergal, who saw him as a usurper. The old rivalries between Enki and Enlil, once tempered by their father Anu's decrees, now flared anew in their offspring, threatening to tear apart the fragile order the Anunnaki had built. The conflict came to a head in the 3rd millennium BC, as the cities of Sumer flourished. Marduk, stationed in the northern city of Babylon, declared himself the rightful ruler of Earth. citing celestial omens that heralded his time. His brother Nabu, a skilled orator, rallied humans to his cause, proclaiming Marduk's divine right. This audacity enraged Ninurta, Enlil's firstborn, and Nergal, a fierce warrior who ruled the lower domains. They accused Marduk of defying the sacred hierarchy, of seeking to supplant Anu himself. The Anunnaki Council, convened in the sacred city of Nippur, became a battleground of words and accusations. Enki, ever the voice of reason, urged peace, but his pleas fell on deaf ears. The younger gods, driven by pride and vengeance, demanded action. The council's deliberations were interrupted by a chilling proposal. Ninurta, his voice thick with fury, called for the use of forbidden weapons devices of terror that could unleash destruction on a scale unseen since the Great Deluge. These were no ordinary arms. They were nuclear weapons, relics of Nibiru's ancient wars, capable of reducing cities to ash and poisoning the land for generations. Nergal, his heart burning with hatred for Marduk, echoed Ninurta's call, volunteering to wield the weapons himself. Enki, horrified, stood alone in opposition. He argued that such weapons were banned, their use a violation of the Anunnaki's sacred oaths. To unleash them on Earth, he warned, would be to invite chaos, not just for humans but for the gods themselves. But Enki's words could not sway the council. Anu, listening from Nibiru via a celestial communicator, made a fateful decision. He authorized the use of the weapons, but with a condition. They were to target only the rebellious cities loyal to Marduk, sparing the innocent. Ninurta and Nergal were tasked with the grim duty, their hands trembling with the weight of their charge. Enki, his heart heavy, retreated to Eridu, vowing to protect his city and its people. As the council dispersed, a sense of dread settled over the land. The gods, once united in their mission to save Nibiru, were now divided by a thirst for power that would bring ruin to all they had built. The day of the catastrophe dawned like any other, the sun rising over the ziggurats of Sumer. In the city of the people went about their lives, unaware of the storm gathering in the heavens. Ninurta and Nergal, cloaked in secrecy, prepared their weapons in a remote plain to the west. The devices, described in ancient texts as clad in dread and splendor, were unlike anything humanity could imagine. They hummed with a malevolent energy, their cores pulsing with the power to unmake creation. As the two gods activated the weapons, a blinding light erupted, followed by a shock wave that shook the earth. A cloud of death, glowing with an eerie radiance, rose into the sky, carried eastward by a merciless wind. The first city to fall was one loyal to Marduk, its name lost to history but its fate etched in the annals of the Anunnaki. The blast incinerated its walls, turning temples and homes to molten ruin. The people, caught in the open, were consumed in an instant, their bodies reduced to shadows burned into the earth. The cloud of death, laden with poison, swept onward, sparing no one in its path. Fields withered, rivers turned foul, and the air itself became a weapon. The cities of Sumeria, Nippur, and others fell one by one, their inhabitants piling up like driftwood in the streets. The gods, watching from their celestial chariots, were struck dumb by the horror they had unleashed. Enki, in Eridu, saw the cloud approaching. He ordered his people to flee to the steppes, to seek shelter in the wilderness. With his wife Ninki, he abandoned his city, his heart breaking as he looked back at the home he had built. Enlil, in Nippur, was equally powerless, launching his celestial boat to escape the poisoned wind. In the goddess Nansha pleaded with her father Enlil to spare her city, but even he, the Lord of Command, could not alter the course of the catastrophe. The wind, described in ancient texts as an evil wind, carried death across the land, sparing neither god nor mortal. The once thriving civilization of Sumer, the cradle of human culture, was reduced to a wasteland, its temples silent, its fields barren. The aftermath was a scene of desolation. The survivors, human and Anunnaki alike, wandered the ruins, their faces etched with grief and disbelief. The rivers, once life-giving, were now poisoned, their waters undrinkable. The fields, once lush with crops, were choked with ash. The hum of life, the chatter of markets, the songs of priest-shad, been replaced by the howl of the wind. Enki, returning to Eridu, wept for his people. He recorded his sorrow on tablets of lapis lazuli, his words a lament for a world undone. "How devastated is the country," he wrote. "How has the evil wind taken its people? The stables and sheepfolds are empty, the hum of milk, churning gone silent." But the catastrophe was not without its mysteries. Whispers among the survivors spoke of a deeper truth, one that the Anunnaki themselves seemed reluctant to face. Was this disaster truly the result of divine wrath, or was it something more sinister? Some humans, those versed in the ancient lore, began to question whether the weapons had been used not just to punish Marduk, but to control the growing power of humanity itself. The cities loyal to Marduk were not the only ones to suffer. The wind had spread far beyond its intended targets, suggesting a miscalculation or perhaps a deliberate act. Could the Anunnaki, in their hubris, have underestimated the power of their own weapons? These questions gave rise to tales that would later be woven into the myths of Sumer and beyond. The Epic of Gilgamesh, for instance, speaks of a great calamity, a time when the gods turned against their own creation. Other texts, like the Atrahasis, hint at a rebellion among the Anunnaki laborers, a revolt that led to the creation of mankind, but also sowed the seeds of discord. The humans, now scattered and broken, began to see their creators not as benevolent gods but as fallible beings, capable of error and destruction. The trust that had once bound mortal to divine was shattered, replaced by a lingering fear of the heavens. Enki, alone among the Anunnaki, sought to make sense of the tragedy. He convened with his scribe, Adapa, in a hidden chamber beneath Eridu. There, by the light of glowing crystals, he dictated his account of the catastrophe, determined to preserve the truth for future generations. He spoke of the council's decision, of Ninurta and Nergal's reckless ambition, and of his own failure to stop them. But he also spoke of a greater question. Was this disaster fated, or was it the result of choices made by gods and men? Enki believed in the concept of destiny, a force that could be shaped by will, unlike the immutable paths of fate. The nuclear holocaust, he argued, was not inevitable, it was the consequence of pride and vengeance. The tablets of Enki's account, etched in lapis lazuli, were sealed in a golden chest, hidden away for a time when humanity might be ready to understand. But their existence raised new questions. Why had the Anunnaki, with their advanced knowledge, allowed such a catastrophe to occur? Were there forces at play beyond even their control? Some among the survivors whispered of a hidden agenda, a plan to reset the human experiment, to curb its growth before it could challenge the gods. These whispers would later fuel tales of a secret cabal, a shadowy group of Anunnaki who lingered on Earth, guiding its history from the shadows. The devastation of Sumer marked a turning point. The Anunnaki, once revered as creators, began to withdraw from the world. Many returned to Nibiru, their mission to harvest gold complete but at a terrible cost. Others, like Marduk, remained, their ambitions undimmed by the catastrophe. The humans, left to rebuild in the ashes, carried the scars of that day in their stories and their souls. The ziggurats, once symbols of divine favor, stood as silent reminders of a time when gods walked the earth and brought destruction upon it. As the dust settled and the winds carried away the last of the poison, a new era dawned. The survivors, guided by the fragments of knowledge Enki had shared, began to rebuild. New cities would rise, new kingdoms would form, but the memory of the catastrophe would never fade. It lived on in the tales of a great fire from the heavens, of a wind that brought death, and of gods who, for all their power, could not escape the consequences of their actions. The stage was set for a new chapter in the saga of the Anunnaki and their human creation, chapter that would see the rise of empires, the clash of gods, and the search for answers to the mysteries left behind in the ruins of Sumer. The ashes of Sumer lay scattered across the once fertile plains, a silent testament to the Anunnaki's catastrophic misstep. The nuclear wind that had ravaged the cradle of civilization left behind a world forever changed, its people clinging to fragments of hope amidst the ruins. Yet, beyond the scarred earth, another force loomed, a celestial enigma that had driven the Anunnaki to our world in the first place. This was Nibiru, the elusive planet of their origin, a wanderer in the heavens, whose 3,600-year orbit held secrets that could unravel the past and foretell the future. Its cycle, vast and relentless, was more than a cosmic rhythm. It was a harbinger of destiny, a force that bound the fates of gods and mortals alike. As the Anunnaki mourned the loss of Sumer, their thoughts turned to Nibiru, its gold-hungry atmosphere, and the looming question, when would it return, and what would its arrival mean for Earth? Nibiru was no ordinary world. Unlike the planets of our solar system, tethered to predictable orbits, Nibiru followed a path that stretched far beyond the sun's grasp. Its elliptical journey took 3,600 Earth years to complete, a single circuit known to the Anunnaki as a Shah. For part of this cycle, Nibiru basked in the sun's warmth, its surface glowing with a reddish hue that captivated those who beheld it. But as it ventured into the cold expanse of deep space, it became a frozen wanderer, its atmosphere sustained only by the fiery eruptions of its volcanoes. These eruptions, spewing ash and gases, formed a dense shield that protected Nibiru's inhabitants from the extremes of heat and cold. Yet, this shield was faltering, its integrity eroded by time and cosmic forces, threatening the survival of an entire civilization. The Anunnaki, a race of unparalleled intellect, had long understood the importance of their planet's atmosphere. It was the lifeblood of Nibiru, nurturing its ecosystems and shielding its people from the sun's harsh rays and the void's bitter chill. But as the atmosphere thinned, the Anunnaki faced a crisis unlike any in their history. Their savants, wise in the ways of the heavens, discovered that gold finely ground into a shimmering dust could be dispersed into the atmosphere to reflect sunlight and stabilize the climate. This discovery was both a salvation and a curse, for gold was rare on Nibiru, its veins long depleted by eons of mining. The search for this precious metal led them to Earth, a distant world rich with promise, where gold lay hidden in rivers, marshes, and deep within the planet's crust. Enki, the master scientist of the Anunnaki, had been among the first to recognize Earth's potential. From his outpost in Eridu, he orchestrated the extraction of gold, first from the waters of the Persian Gulf, and later from the deep mines of the Abzu in Southeast Africa. The gold was vital, not just for Nibiru's survival, but for the Anunnaki's very identity as a spacefaring race. Their celestial chariots, powered by firestones and crystalline devices, carried the precious metal back to Nibiru, where it was transformed into a protective veil. But the process was slow, and the yields from Earth's waters were meager. Enki's discovery of the Abzu's rich veins offered hope, but it came at a cost: years of toil, rebellion among the Anunnaki laborers, and the creation of mankind to bear the burden. The cycle of Nibiru's orbit was more than a cosmic clock. It was a force that shaped the Anunnaki's actions on Earth. Every 3,600 years, as Nibiru drew near the sun, its gravitational pull sent ripples through the solar system. Ancient texts, etched on clay tablets, spoke of these approaches as times of upheaval, when rivers shifted their courses, mountains trembled, and the heavens burned with strange lights. The Anunnaki believed that Nibiru's return was a moment of judgment, a time when destinies were forged and fates sealed. Enki, in his writings, described it as a day of re-entering, when the celestial god Nibiru itself would reveal who would survive and who would perish, both gods and mortals alike. This belief in Nibiru's cycle gave rise to a profound question. Was the history of Earth and its people tied to this distant planet? The Anunnaki's presence on Earth was no accident. It was a calculated mission driven by Nibiru's needs. But as the centuries passed, some among the Anunnaki began to wonder if their role extended beyond mere resource extraction. Enki, ever the visionary, saw Earth as more than a mine. He saw it as a second home, a place where a new civilization could flourish under the guidance of his human creations. Enlil, however, viewed Earth as a temporary outpost, a means to an end. The tension between these visions would shape the Anunnaki's legacy, culminating in the nuclear catastrophe that had devastated Sumer. The destruction of Sumer, though born of Anunnaki rivalries, was also tied to Nibiru's cycle. Ancient texts suggest that the catastrophe occurred as Nibiru approached its perihelion, the point in its orbit closest to the Sun. The planet's gravitational influence may have amplified the chaos, stirring unrest among the gods and their human subjects. Marduk, Enki's son, claimed that celestial omen shifts in the stars and planets heralded his rise to power. His rivals, Ninurta and Nergal, saw these same omens as a threat, a challenge to their authority. The decision to unleash the weapons of terror, Enki later wrote, was not just a reaction to Marduk's rebellion, but a desperate attempt to assert control in a time of cosmic uncertainty. Enki's tablets, hidden away in a golden chest, spoke of Nibiru's return as a moment of reckoning. He believed that the planet's cycle was not just a physical phenomenon but a metaphysical one, a rhythm that connected past, present, and future. In his writings, he pondered the nature of destiny and fate. Destiny, he argued, was malleable, shaped by the choices of gods and men. Fate, however, was immutable, like the orbit of Nibiru itself, a path that could not be altered. The nuclear catastrophe, he lamented, was a product of destiny gone awry, a consequence of the Anunnaki's failure to heed the lessons of their own history. But he also saw hope in the cycle, a chance for renewal when Nibiru returned. The humans, too, were drawn into this cosmic drama. The priests and scribes of Sumer, trained by Enki's initiates, recorded tales of a wandering star, a celestial god that brought both creation and destruction. These stories, passed down through generations, found their way into the myths of Babylon, Egypt, and beyond. The Babylonians spoke of a planet called Marduk, named for Enki's son, whose appearance in the skies signaled great change. The Hebrews, in their sacred texts, hinted at a day of judgment, when the heavens would open and a new order would emerge. These myths, though fragmented, carried echoes of Nibiru's cycle, a memory of a time when gods and men stood on the precipice of destiny. But the mystery of Nibiru extended beyond its orbit. The Anunnaki's records, etched on clay and stone, spoke of a planet with a reddish glow, a world that shone like a beacon in the darkness of space. Some humans, those versed in the ancient lore, began to speculate about its location. Was Nibiru still out there, hidden in the outer reaches of the solar system? The Anunnaki's advanced knowledge of the heavens, as recorded by Enki's son Ningish-Sida, suggested that Nibiru passed through a region known as the Hammered Bracelet, a belt of asteroids that marked the boundary of the inner solar system. This region, the Anunnaki claimed, was the remnant of a cosmic battle, a collision that had shaped the planets and left gold scattered across Earth. The idea of Nibiru as a hidden planet sparked whispers of a greater secret. Some among the humans believed that the Anunnaki had left behind clues, encoded in the architecture of their cities and the alignments of their temples. The ziggurats of Sumer, for instance, were said to be oriented toward the stars, their steps a ladder to the heavens. In Egypt, the pyramids of Giza mirrored the constellation of Orion, a celestial map that some claimed pointed to Nibiru's path. These structures, built with a precision that baffled later generations, suggested a knowledge of the cosmos far beyond what humans should have possessed. Were they markers, left by the Anunnaki to guide their descendants when Nibiru returned? Enki, in his writings, hinted at such a possibility. He spoke of a time when the first things would be the last, when the cycle of Nibiru would bring the Anunnaki back to Earth. This prophecy, recorded on the lapis lazuli tablets, was both a warning and a promise. Enki believed that the humans, his creations, would play a role in this cosmic reunion, but he also feared that Nibiru's return could bring chaos, as it had in the past. The gravitational pull of the planet, he wrote, could shift rivers, topple mountains, and unleash storms of fire and darkness. The survivors of Sumer, scattered and broken, carried these warnings in their stories, their priests teaching that the heavens held both salvation and judgment. As the Anunnaki withdrew from Earth, their presence fading into myth, the question of Nibiru lingered. The gold they had harvested had stabilized their atmosphere, at least for a time, but the cost had been immense. The destruction of Sumer, the suffering of humanity, and the rift between Enki and Enlil had left scars that would not heal. Enki, ever the protector, remained on Earth longer than most, overseeing the rebuilding of the human world. He taught his initiates to watch the skies, to track the stars and planets for signs of Nibiru's return. These initiates, the first astronomers, became the keepers of a sacred knowledge, their observations shaping the calendars and prophecies of ancient civilizations. The cycle of Nibiru, however, was not just a matter of astronomy. It was a lens through which the Anunnaki viewed their own existence. Enki, in his reflections, wrote of the parallels between Nibiru and Earth. Both worlds were bound by cycles, Nibiru by its orbit, Earth by its seasons and years. Both faced crises of survival, from the thinning atmosphere of Nibiru to the nuclear devastation of Sumer, and both, Enki believed, were shaped by the interplay of fate and destiny. The Anunnaki, with their free will, had the power to alter their path, but only within the limits of the cosmic order. The humans, their creations, inherited this same potential, a spark of divine agency that could one day challenge the gods themselves. The mystery of Nibiru's cycle would not fade with the fall of Sumer. As new civilizations rose, Babylon, Assyria, Egypt, the tales of a wandering planet endured. The priests of Babylon spoke of a star that heralded the rise of kings, while the sages of Egypt aligned their temples to capture its light. In distant lands, from the Indus Valley to the Americas, stories emerged of a celestial visitor that brought both creation and destruction. These tales, though varied, shared a common thread, a belief that the heavens held secrets, that the gods who had once walked the earth would one day return. Enki's tablets, sealed in their golden chest, were meant to preserve these truths. They spoke of Nibiru not as a myth, but as a reality, a planet whose cycle would shape the destiny of worlds. Adapa, Enki's chosen scribe, recorded these words with reverence, his stylus tracing the story of a race that had crossed the stars to save their home. But the tablets also carried a warning. When Nibiru returned, it would bring a reckoning. The humans, now scattered across the earth, would face a choice to rise as partners to the Anunnaki, or to fall under the weight of their own ambitions. As the millennia passed, the memory of Nibiru faded into legend, its cycle a whisper in the annals of history. Yet, the questions it raised endured. Was Nibiru still out there, hidden in the darkness of space? Would its return bring salvation or destruction? The Anunnaki, now gone from Earth, had left behind a legacy of mystery, their story etched in the ruins of Sumer and the myths of countless cultures. The cycle of 3,600 years, Enki wrote, was a reminder that the past and future were one, that the first things would be the last. As humanity rebuilt from the ashes of Sumer, the shadow of Nibiru loomed, a silent promise of a day when the heavens would open once more, and the truth of our origins would be revealed. The shadow of Nibiru's cycle loomed over a recovering Earth, its 3,600-year orbit, a silent promise of cosmic upheaval yet to come. The ruins of Sumer, scarred by the nuclear catastrophe unleashed by the Anunnaki, stood as a grim reminder of their power and their flaws. Yet, amidst the ashes of that ancient civilization, another mystery began to take shape that would span millennia, weaving through the annals of history to the modern era. This was the enigma of the Mohen collection, a trove of artifacts said to hold the secrets of the Anunnaki's time on Earth. Curated, according to legend, under the auspices of the powerful Rothschild family, this collection is shrouded in whispers of hidden knowledge, forbidden truths, and a legacy that stretches back to the dawn of human civilization. What secrets does it conceal, and why have they remained locked away from the world? The Mohen collection, as described by its alleged chronicler Ryan Mohen, is no ordinary archive. It is said to be a private repository in Liechtenstein, a tiny European nation known for its secrecy and discretion. The collection reportedly contains clay tablets, stone carvings, and other relics from the ancient Near East, many predating the known histories of Sumer, Babylon, and Egypt. These artifacts, according to Mohen, were once curated by his grandfather, a figure entrusted by the Rothschilds to safeguard this treasure trove. The Rothschilds, a banking dynasty whose influence has shaped global finance for centuries, are an intriguing link in this tale. Their name evokes images of wealth, power, and mystery, making them the perfect custodians for a collection that claims to rewrite the story of humanity's origins. Ryan Mohen's account paints a vivid picture, a hidden vault filled with tablets inscribed with the writings of Enki, the Anunnaki scientist who created mankind. These tablets, etched in cuneiform and sealed with the authority of ancient gods, are said to detail the Anunnaki's arrival on Earth, their creation of Homo sapiens, and the catastrophic events that followed. Among the most remarkable claims is that the collection includes the autobiography of Enki himself, dictated to his scribe Adapa over 40 days and nights. These writings, carved on lapis lazuli and stored in a golden chest, are described as a testament to the past and a prophecy for the future, linking the Anunnaki's actions to the fate of humanity. The Rothschild connection adds a layer of intrigue to the Mohen collection. The family, founded by Mayer Amschel Rothschild in the 18th century, rose from the Frankfurt ghetto to become one of the most powerful banking dynasties in history. Their influence spanned Europe, with Mayer's 5 sons establishing financial empires in London, Paris, Vienna, Naples, and Frankfurt. The Rothschilds were not just bankers, they were collectors of art, artifacts, and knowledge, amassing vast collections that rivaled those of royalty. Their palaces, such as Waddesdon Manor in England and Château de Ferrières in France, were filled with treasures, paintings, sculptures, and rare objects that reflected their wealth and taste. Could such a family, with its resources and connections, have secretly acquired and hidden a collection of ancient relics that revealed the truth about humanity's extraterrestrial origins? The idea is tantalizing, but it raises questions. Why would the Rothschilds, known for their financial acumen and philanthropy, guard a collection like the Mohen? The answer, according to some, lies in the power of knowledge. The tablets, if they exist, could contain information that challenges the foundations of history, religion, and science. Enki's writings, as described by Mohen, speak of the Anunnaki's genetic engineering, their use of nuclear weapons, and their plans for Earth's future. Such revelations could upend established narratives, from the creation stories of the Bible to the scientific understanding of human evolution. For a family with influence over global institutions, controlling such knowledge could be a means of maintaining power, protecting humanity from truths it is not ready to face. The Mohen collection's origins are murky, adding to its mystique. Ryan Mohen claims to have studied Near Eastern history for over 3 decades, gaining access to the collection through special permission from the Rothschilds. Yet, no independent records confirm the existence of this archive, and Liechtenstein, with its reputation for secrecy, is a convenient but unverifiable location. The lack of transparency fuels speculation. Some whisper that the collection is a fabrication, a modern myth crafted to lend credence to theories of ancient aliens. Others believe it is real but deliberately hidden, perhaps in a vault beneath one of the Rothschilds' grand estates, guarded by layers of security and discretion. The Rothschilds' history lends some plausibility to their role as keepers of secrets. Their wealth, as documented in historical accounts, allowed them to amass extraordinary collections. James de Rothschild, the patriarch of the French branch, was a renowned collector of art and antiquities, his Château de Ferrières a showcase of opulence. Lionel Walter Rothschild, of the English branch, built one of the largest private natural history collections in the world, including 280 bird specimens later sold to the American Museum of Natural History. The family's passion for collecting extended to ancient artifacts, with some members sponsoring archaeological excavations in the Middle East. Could they have acquired Sumerian tablets or other relics that hinted at an extraterrestrial past? The Mohen collection, if real, would be a treasure beyond price. Its tablets are said to include texts predating known Sumerian records, some dating back to the time before the Great Deluge. These texts, according to Mohen, describe the Anunnaki's arrival, their establishment of Eridu, and their interactions with early humans. One tablet, known as the Eridu Genesis, is said to detail Enki's creation of mankind, while others recount the nuclear catastrophe that destroyed Sumer. The collection also allegedly includes fragments of the Book of the Secrets of Thoth, an Egyptian text linked to the Anunnaki's knowledge, and references to lost books mentioned in the Bible, such as the Book of Jasher and the Book of the Wars of Yahweh. These texts, if they exist, could bridge the gap between myth and history, offering a glimpse into a past where gods and aliens were one and the same. But the Rothschild connection also invites darker speculation. The family's immense wealth and influence have long made them a target of conspiracy theories, some with anti-Semitic undertones. Some claim the Rothschilds have used their power to manipulate global events, from wars to financial crises, a narrative rooted in 19th century pamphlets like Histoire, Édifiante et Curieuse, de Rothschild ear, Roi des Juifs. In the context of the Mohen collection, these theories take on a new dimension. Could the Rothschilds have hidden the collection to control knowledge of humanity's origins, ensuring their dominance over a world unaware of its true history? Or are they protectors, safeguarding dangerous truths until humanity is ready to confront them? Ryan Mohen's account suggests the latter. He describes his grandfather's role as a curator, not a conspirator, entrusted with preserving the collection for future generations. Yet the lack of verifiable evidence raises doubts. The Rothschilds' history of philanthropy, including donations to museums like the Louvre and the British Museum, suggests they were more likely to share knowledge than conceal it. Still, their wealth and secrecy, exemplified by complex offshore trusts in places like the Cook Islands, lend credence to the idea that they could hide something as significant as the Mohen collection. The family's ability to operate discreetly, as noted in historical accounts, makes them plausible candidates for guardians of a secret archive. The mystery deepens when we consider the content of the tablets. Enki's autobiography, as recounted by Mohen, is a narrative of creation and destruction, a story of a god who defied his peers to save humanity. The tablets speak of the Anunnaki's internal conflicts, their use of forbidden weapons, and their fears of Nibiru's return. They also hint at a prophecy that the cycle of Nibiru's orbit will bring a day of judgment when the truths of the past will be revealed. If these tablets exist, they could be the key to understanding not just the Anunnaki's role in human history, but the future that awaits us. The Rothschilds, with their vast resources, could have the means to protect such knowledge, perhaps storing it in a secure facility in Liechtenstein or another discreet location. Yet, the absence of the Mohen collection from public records raises troubling questions. Why has no scholar, archaeologist, or historian corroborated its existence? The Sumerian tablets we know of, such as those found in Nineveh or the Ashmolean Museum, are well documented and accessible to researchers. The Mohen collection, by contrast, exists only in Ryan Mohen's narrative, a tale that blends fact with speculation. Some might argue that this secrecy is deliberate, a means of protecting knowledge too dangerous for the world to know. Others see it as a sign that the collection is a myth, a modern fabrication designed to fuel fascination with ancient aliens. The Rothschilds' own history offers clues but no answers. Their collections, from Waddesdon Manor to Château de Ferrières, are renowned for their quality and diversity, encompassing everything from old master paintings to ancient glasswork. But there is no mention of Sumerian tablets or Anunnaki relics in their documented archives. The family's philanthropy, including the donation of Waddesdon Manor to the National Trust, suggests a willingness to share their treasures. Yet, their use of offshore trusts and discreet financial arrangements hints at a capacity for secrecy that could conceal something like the Mohen collection. As humanity rebuilt from the ashes of Sumer, the Anunnaki's presence faded, their story becoming myth. The Mohen collection, if it exists, could be the last link to that ancient truth, a bridge between the world of gods and the world of men. Enki's tablets, sealed in their golden chest, were meant to be found by the chosen ones, those destined to uncover the secrets of the past. The Rothschilds, with their wealth and influence, could be those chosen one Esau. They could be guardians, keeping the truth hidden until the time is right. As Nibiru's cycle continues, its return drawing ever closer, the mystery of the Mohen collection remains, a tantalizing puzzle that challenges our understanding of history and our place in the cosmos. If this mystery intrigues you, hit that like button. Share your thoughts in the comments to uncover more secrets of the ancient world with Mr. H. The Mohen collection, with its whispered secrets of ancient gods and hidden truths, lay concealed in the shadows of history, a silent witness to the Anunnaki's legacy on Earth. As the centuries passed, the ruins of Sumer gave way to new cities, new stories, and new hopes. Yet, long before the nuclear catastrophe that scarred the land, another cataclysm had tested the bond between the Anunnaki and their human creations. This was the Great Deluge, a flood of such magnitude that it threatened to erase mankind from the face of the earth. In the face of this apocalyptic tide, one figure stood defiant: Enki, the creator of humanity, whose compassion and cunning would defy the will of his peers to save his beloved earthlings. The story of the Deluge is one of divine wrath, mortal survival, and a god's rebellion, a tale that resonates in the myths of countless cultures and raises questions about the true nature of our origins. The seeds of the Deluge were sown in the early days of human civilization, when the cities of the Edenur, Uruk, and Eridu flourished under the guidance of the Anunnaki. Humanity, crafted by Enki and Ninhursag through genetic mastery, had grown beyond its origins as mere laborers. The humans, now numbering in the thousands, built homes, cultivated fields, and offered tributes to their creators, whom they revered as gods. Their rapid proliferation, however, stirred unease among the Anunnaki. Enlil, the Lord of the Command, saw the swelling human population as a threat to the order he sought to impose. To him, the Earthlings were becoming too numerous, too restless, their voices rising in ways that challenged the divine hierarchy. Enlil's concerns were not without cause. The humans, gifted with fragments of Anunnaki wisdom, were beginning to question their place in the world. In Eridu, Enki's chosen initiates, priests, and scribes trained in the sacred mare recorded the deeds of their creators, weaving tales of creation and divine intervention. These stories, etched on clay tablets, spoke of a time when gods walked the earth, shaping its destiny. But they also hinted at tensions among the Anunnaki, a rift between Enki's vision of partnership and Enlil's demand for control. As the human cities grew, so did their ambitions, and Enlil feared that they might one day rival their makers. The tipping point came in a time of cosmic unrest, when the earth itself seemed to rebel against its inhabitants. Ancient texts, preserved in fragments like the Atrahasis and the Epic of Gilgamesh, describe a period of upheaval rains that never ceased, rivers that overflowed their banks, and a sky darkened by storms. The Anunnaki, with their advanced knowledge of the heavens, understood that these were no ordinary phenomena. Some speculated that the approach of Nibiru, their homeworld, had disrupted Earth's climate, its gravitational pull stirring the seas and shaking the land. Others believed it was a sign of divine displeasure, a warning that the balance between gods and mortals had been upset. In the sacred council of the Anunnaki, convened in Nippur, Enlil seized the moment to assert his authority. He argued that humanity had become a burden, their numbers a strain on Earth's resources. The floods, he claimed, were a judgment from the cosmos, a chance to cleanse the world of its unruly inhabitants. Enlil proposed a radical solution, to let the deluge consume humanity, allowing the earth to start anew. The council, swayed by his commanding presence, agreed. Even Anu, the king of Nibiru, listening from afar, gave his reluctant assent, believing that the survival of the Anunnaki's mission demanded sacrifice. Only one voice dissented: Enki, the creator of mankind, who could not bear to see his creations perish. Enki's heart was heavy as he left the council. He had crafted humanity with care, weaving their essence from the clay of earth and the blood of Nibiru. To him, the humans were more than laborers. They were a legacy, a testament to the potential of life itself. In Eridu, he walked among them, watching as they tended their fields and sang hymns to the gods. The thought of their destruction was unbearable. Enki resolved to defy the council's decree, to find a way to preserve humanity against the will of his peers. It was a rebellion born of compassion, but it would come at a great cost, testing the bonds of brotherhood and the limits of divine authority. Among the humans, there was a man named Ziusudra, a priest-king of Shuruppak, known for his wisdom and devotion. Ziusudra, whose name meant "he who found long life," was one of Enki's chosen, a keeper of the Me who had learned the secrets of writing and astronomy. Enki saw in him the hope of humanity's survival. Under the cover of night, Enki visited Ziusudra in a dream. His voice carried through the reeds of the priest's humble dwelling. "Hear me, Ziusudra," Enki whispered, "for a great flood is coming, a tide that will swallow the land and all who dwell upon it. Build a vessel, a great ark of wood and pitch, to carry you and the seeds of life through the waters." Ziusudra, awaking with a start, understood the gravity of the message. Guided by Enki's instructions, he gathered his people and set to work. The ark, vast and sturdy, was unlike anything the humans had built before. Its design, whispered by Enki, was a marvel of engineering, capable of withstanding the fury of the coming deluge. Ziusudra's followers, trusting in his vision, labored tirelessly, felling trees and sealing the hull with bitumen. They loaded the ark with provisions grain, livestock, and the seeds of every plant ensuring that life could begin anew. The people of Shuruppak, though puzzled by the task, followed their leader, sensing the divine hand behind his command. As the rains began to fall, the Anunnaki watched from their celestial chariots, their hearts divided. Enlil, stationed in Nippur, believed the flood would restore order, purging the earth of its human burden. Ninhursag, the mother of life, wept for the creatures she had helped create, her loyalty torn between Enki and the council. Anu on Nibiru remained silent, his thoughts unreadable across the vast distance. Enki, alone in Eridu, stood by the marshes, his eyes fixed on the rising waters. He had betrayed the council's decree, but he felt no remorse. To him, the humans were his children, and no god or law could justify their annihilation. The deluge came with a fury that shook the foundations of the earth. The skies opened, unleashing torrents that merged with the swelling rivers. The Tigris and Euphrates burst their banks, their waters consuming villages and fields. The cities of the Edin, once vibrant with life, were swallowed by the flood, their mud-brick walls dissolving into the churning depths. The humans, unprepared and unaware, perished in droves, their cries drowned by the roar of the waters. The Anunnaki, safe in their celestial vessels, watched in horror as the world they had shaped was undone. Even Enlil, steadfast in his resolve, felt a pang of doubt as the scale of the destruction became clear. Ziusudra's ark, however, held firm. Guided by Enki's wisdom, it rode the waves, a solitary beacon of hope amidst the chaos. Inside, Ziusudra and his family huddled with their cargo of life animals, seeds, and the knowledge of the Me. For days and nights, the ark drifted, battered by storms but unbroken. Enki, watching from afar, sent subtle signs to guide the vessel abeam of light through the clouds, a shift in the wind censuring its survival. When the rains finally ceased and the waters began to recede, the ark came to rest on a mountain, its hull grounded on the slopes of what later generations would call Ararat. Ziusudra emerged from the ark, his heart heavy with the loss of his people, but filled with gratitude for Enki's mercy. He built an altar and offered sacrifices, the smoke rising to the heavens as a sign of his devotion. Enki, descending in his celestial chariot, appeared before Ziusudra, his presence both majestic and somber. "You have preserved the seed of life," Enki said, his voice carrying the weight of his defiance. "From you, humanity shall rise again, and the earth shall be renewed." Enlil, arriving too late to undo Enki's act, was furious but powerless. The Council's decree had been thwarted, and humanity had been given a second chance. The deluge left its mark on the earth, reshaping its landscapes and its people. The survivors, led by Ziusudra, spread across the land, rebuilding their lives in the shadow of the flood. They carried with them the stories of the deluge, tales of a god who saved them from annihilation. These stories, recorded on clay tablets, became the foundation of myths that echoed across cultures, from the Sumerian Ziusudra to the Babylonian Utnapishtim to the Hebrew Noah. Each version carried a kernel of truth, a memory of Enki's rebellion and the ark that preserved life against the odds. But the deluge also raised questions that lingered long after the waters receded. Why had Enlil sought to destroy humanity? Was the flood a natural disaster, triggered by Nibiru's orbit, or a deliberate act of divine wrath? Some among the survivors whispered of a deeper motive, a desire among the Anunnaki to reset their experiment, to curb humanity's growing independence. Enki's act of salvation, though heroic, was a betrayal of his peers, a crack in the divine order that would widen in the centuries to come. The humans, now aware of their creator's fallibility, began to see them not as infallible gods, but as beings capable of error and division. Enki, reflecting on the deluge, recorded his thoughts in his lapis lazuli tablets. He wrote of the flood as a test of destiny, a moment when the will of the gods clashed with the resilience of their creations. The deluge was not fated, he declared, but a choice born of fear and pride. He believed that humanity's survival was a sign of their potential, a spark that could one day rival the Anunnaki themselves. Yet, he also knew that the flood had changed the relationship between gods and mortals. The humans, once obedient laborers, now carried a new awareness, a sense of their own agency that would shape the future. As the survivors rebuilt, Enki remained among them, guiding the creation of new settlements. The knowledge of the Migra culture, writing, and law spread, laying the foundation for the rise of new civilizations. But the memory of the deluge never faded. It lived on in the stories of priests, the songs of poets, and the fears of a people who had seen the wrath of the heavens. The flood became a warning, a reminder that the gods who had created humanity could also destroy it. And yet, in Enki's act of salvation, there was hopier promise that even in the face of annihilation, life could endure, guided by a god who dared to defy his own kind for the sake of his creations. The great deluge had receded, leaving behind a world reborn from the waters, its survivors clinging to the wisdom Enki had bestowed upon them. Ziusudra's ark, a beacon of hope, had preserved the seed of humanity, and new settlements began to rise from the fertile plains of the Edin. Yet, the harmony between gods and mortals was fragile, a delicate balance threatened by the ambitions and rivalries of the Anunnaki themselves. The flood, meant to cleanse the earth of its human burden, had instead deepened the divide among the celestial visitors from Nibiru. As humanity rebuilt, the gods turned their gaze inward, their conflicts erupting into a struggle for power that would shape the fate of both worlds. These divine disputes, fueled by pride, jealousy, and competing visions for Earth's future, would cast a long shadow over the emerging civilizations, leaving echoes in the myths and ruins of ancient Sumer. At the heart of this turmoil were Enki and Enlil, half-brothers bound by blood, but divided by philosophy. Enki, the creator of mankind, saw the humans as partners in a grand experiment, a race with the potential to mirror the Anunnaki's own intellect and ambition. From his stronghold in Eridu, he nurtured their growth, teaching them the arts of civilization writing, agriculture, and the sacred me. Enlil, the Lord of the Command, held a different view. Stationed in Nippur, the spiritual center of the Anunnaki's Earth mission, he saw humanity as a tool, a means to extract gold for Nibiru's survival. To Enlil, the humans' rapid proliferation and growing independence were a threat, a challenge to the divine order he sought to enforce. Their rivalry, born on Nibiru and carried to Earth, was a spark that would ignite a firestorm among the gods. The tension between Enki and Enlil was not new. On Nibiru, their father, Anu, had faced a similar divide when he ascended the throne. The planet's history was one of conflict, with northern and southern tribes warring for dominance until a unified dynasty was forged through marriage and decree. Enlil, as the son of Anu's official wife, Antu, was the legal heir, despite Enki being the firstborn. This succession dispute had followed them to Earth, where Enlil's appointment as commander of the mission rankled Enki, who was relegated to the Abzu, the gold-rich lands of Southeast Africa. Enki's creation of mankind, though a solution to the labor shortage, had further strained their relationship, as Enlil saw it as an act of defiance, a step toward empowering a race that should remain subservient. As the centuries passed, the conflict spread to the next generation of Anunnaki, those born on Earth and shaped by its cycles. Marduk, Enki's firstborn son, emerged as a figure of immense charisma and ambition. Unlike his father, who sought to guide humanity with wisdom, Marduk dreamed of ruling Earth as its supreme god. From his base in Babylon, a city he claimed as his own, he rallied humans to his cause, proclaiming that celestial omen shifts in the stars and planets heralded his time to reign. His brother Nabu, a gifted orator, amplified Marduk's message, weaving tales of divine supremacy that stirred the hearts of the earthlings. Marduk's rise was a direct challenge to Enlil's authority and a spark that would ignite a divine civil war. Enlil's children, Ninurta and Nergal, were quick to respond. Ninurta, a warrior of unmatched prowess, saw Marduk's ambitions as an affront to his father's command. Nergal, lord of the lower domains, harbored a personal grudge against Marduk, whose actions had marginalized him in the Anunnaki hierarchy. The goddess Inanna, Enlil's granddaughter and twin sister of Utu, added fuel to the fire. Known for her beauty and ferocity, Inanna demanded vengeance against Marduk for the death of her beloved Dumuzi, a tragedy she blamed on his schemes. The Council of the Anunnaki, once a place of reasoned debate, became a battleground of accusations and ultimatums, with each god vying for dominance over Earth's future. The turning point came in the 3rd millennium BC, as the cities of Sumer reached their zenith. Babylon, under Marduk's influence, grew into a rival to Nippur, its ziggurat a symbol of his defiance. Enlil, enraged by Marduk's claims, convened the council to address what he called a rebellion. In Nippur's sacred chamber, surrounded by the glowing crystals of their celestial technology, the gods gathered. Enlil accused Marduk of usurping the divine order, of rallying humans to worship him above all others. Ninurta and Nergal echoed his fury, demanding that Marduk be stripped of his power. Inanna, her voice sharp with grief, called for punishment, her eyes blazing with the memory of Dumuzi's loss. Even Ninhursag, the mother of life, remained silent, her loyalty torn between Enki and the council. Enki, ever the voice of reason, stood to defend his son. He argued that Marduk's actions were driven by the will of destiny, not rebellion. The celestial omens, he claimed, were real signs that the cycle of Nibiru was shifting, heralding a new era. Enki urged the council to seek peace, to find a way to coexist with humanity's growing independence. But his words were drowned out by the clamor of anger. Ninurta, his voice like thunder, proposed a drastic measure, the use of the forbidden weapons of terror, nuclear devices that could obliterate Marduk's strongholds. Nergal, leaping to his feet, volunteered to wield them, his heart burning with vengeance. Enki, horrified, protested that such weapons were banned, their use a violation of the Anunnaki's sacred oaths. But the council, swayed by Enlil's authority, turned against him. Anu, the king of Nibiru, listened to the debate from afar, his voice carried across the stars by a crystalline communicator. Torn between his sons, he made a fateful decision. The weapons could be used, but only to target Marduk's cities, sparing the innocent. Enki, alone in his opposition, left the council in despair, knowing that the decision would bring ruin. The stage was set for the nuclear catastrophe that would devastate Sumer, a tragedy born not just of Marduk's ambition but of the deeper rivalries that had simmered since the Anunnaki's arrival on Earth. The gods, once united in their mission to save Nibiru, were now divided by pride and power, their conflicts threatening to consume the world they had shaped. The roots of this divine strife lay in the Anunnaki's own history. On Nibiru, power struggles had defined their civilization. The unification of the planet under Anu's dynasty had been a hard-won victory, achieved through marriage and diplomacy after centuries of war between northern and southern tribes. Enki, as the firstborn, had been denied the throne due to the laws of succession, which favored Enlil, the son of Anu's official wife. This ancient grievance followed them to Earth, where Enlil's command of the mission placed him above Enki, despite the latter's role in creating mankind. Enki's decision to share the me with humans, granting them the knowledge of civilization, was seen by Enlil as a further act of defiance, a challenge to his authority. Marduk's rebellion was, in many ways, an extension of his father's vision. He believed that the humans, now flourishing in their cities, deserved a god who would lead them as equals, not rule them as slaves. His claim to Earth's mastery was not just a power grab, but a philosophical stand, one that echoed Enki's belief in humanity's potential. Yet, Marduk's methods were bold, even reckless. By rallying humans to his cause, he created a schism among the Anunnaki, forcing each god to choose a side. Ninurta and Nergal, loyal to Enlil, saw Marduk's actions as a betrayal of their divine mandate. Inanna, driven by personal loss, viewed him as a threat to the stability of the god's rule. The council's decision to use the weapons of terror was not just a response to Marduk, but a desperate attempt to restore the old order. The aftermath of the nuclear catastrophe only deepened the divide. Enlil, shaken by the scale of the destruction, retreated to Nippur, his authority diminished by the failure of his plan. Enki, who had fled to the steppes to protect his people, returned to Eridu, his heart heavy with grief. Marduk, though his cities were targeted, survived, his resolve strengthened by the ordeal. The humans, scattered and broken, began to question their creators. The gods, once revered as infallible, were now seen as fallible, their disputes spilling over into the mortal world. The priests of Sumer, trained in the me, recorded these events on clay tablets, their stories becoming the myths of a divine war that had nearly destroyed humanity. Enki, in his reflections, saw the power struggles as a mirror of Nibiru's own history. On their homeworld, the gods had fought for dominance, their wars leaving scars that took generations to heal. Earth, he believed, was a second-chancier place where the Anunnaki could forge a new legacy, but the conflicts among the gods threatened to repeat the mistakes of the past. Enki's tablets, dictated to Adapa, spoke of a need to distinguish between fate and destiny. Fate, he argued, was the immutable path of Nibiru's orbit, a cycle that could not be altered. Destiny, however, was shaped by choice, by the actions of gods and men. The nuclear catastrophe, born of the gods' rivalry, was a failure of destiny, a wound that could have been avoided. As the Anunnaki withdrew from Earth, their presence fading into myth, the power struggles left a lasting legacy. The humans, rebuilding in the shadow of the catastrophe, carried the stories of their gods' conflicts. The Epic of Gilgamesh, the Atrahasis, and other texts preserved fragments of this divine drama, their tales of gods at war shaping the beliefs of future generations. The ziggurats of Sumer, though scarred by the evil wind, stood as monuments to a time when gods walked the earth, their disputes shaping the course of history. The rivalry between Enki and Enlil, Marduk and Ninurta, would echo in the rise and fall of empires, from Babylon to Egypt, each culture weaving its own version of the truth. The power struggles among the gods were not just a tale of divine ambition but a warning. Enki, in his final writings, spoke of a time when the cycle of Nibiru would bring the Anunnaki back to Earth, their conflicts unresolved. The humans, now bearing the spark of their creators, would face a choice to rise above the divisions of their gods or to fall into the same cycle of strife. The tablets, sealed in their golden chest, were a testament to this truth, a guide for a future when the heavens would open once more. As humanity forged ahead, building new kingdoms from the ruins, the echoes of the gods' battles lingered, a reminder that power, even divine, comes at a cost. The power struggles among the Anunnaki had left the earth scarred, their divine disputes echoing in the ruins of Sumer and the tales of a humanity reborn. Enki's defiance had saved mankind from the Deluge, and his rivalry with Enlil had fueled a catastrophic clash that reshaped the world. Yet, before these earth-shaking events, another figure's ambition set the stage for the Anunnaki's presence on Earth, a figure whose rise and fall would become a cautionary tale among the gods. This was Alalu, once king of Nibiru, whose discovery of gold on Earth brought hope to his people but led to his own exile and lonely death on the red sands of Lamu, the planet we know as Mars. His story, etched in the annals of the Anunnaki, is one of hubris, betrayal, and a final act of redemption that left an enduring mark on the cosmos. Alalu's tale begins on Nibiru. Long before the Anunnaki set foot on Earth, he was a king of renown, his rule marked by the unification of a planet torn by ancient wars between its northern and southern tribes. Chosen by lot, Alalu brought peace through strength, his decrees restoring order to a land ravaged by conflict. His city, Arcade, meaning unity, stood as a testament to his vision, its canals and fields nourishing a people weary of strife. Yet beneath this prosperity, Nibiru faced a silent crisis. Its atmosphere, sustained by volcanic eruptions, was thinning, threatening the survival of all life. Alalu, a king of action, sought solutions, but the scarcity of gold, the key to stabilizing the atmosphere, eluded his grasp. In a desperate bid to save his world, Alalu turned to the forbidden. The Anunnaki's ancient texts spoke of weapons of terror, nuclear devices capable of triggering volcanic activity to replenish the atmosphere. Against the counsel of his sages, Alalu unleashed these weapons, their blasts shaking Nibiru's core. The volcanoes roared to life, but the cost was immense. Landscapes were scarred, and Alalu's reputation faltered. His rival, Anu, a prince of royal blood, seized the moment. Challenging Alalu to a wrestling match, a sacred trial of strength, Anu defeated him, claiming the throne. Alalu, stripped of his crown, faced a choice: accept defeat or seek a new path. He chose the latter, stealing a celestial chariot and fleeing Nibiru for a world rumored to hold Salvation Earth. Alalu's journey was perilous, a solitary voyage through the Hammered Bracelet, a belt of asteroids that guarded the inner solar system. Disguised in a fish-like suit, he navigated the chariot's crystalline controls, his heart pounding with defiance and hope. When he splashed down in Earth's ancient seas, he found a world untouched by civilization, its marshes and plains teeming with life. Guided by a tester, a device that sought out precious metals, Alalu waded through the waters, his instruments glowing with promise. The readings were clear. Earth was rich with gold, its veins hidden in the seas and soil. In that moment, Alalu saw a path to redemption. He sent a message to Nibiru, proclaiming his discovery and demanding the throne as his reward. On Nibiru, Alalu's words caused an uproar. Anu, now king, was stunned to learn that his rival lived, let alone that he had found salvation in a distant world. The council of princes and sages debated fiercely. Some questioned Alalu's claims, suspecting mischief or madness. Others, including Enki, Anu's firstborn and Alalu's son-in-law, urged caution, proposing a mission to verify the discovery. Anu, torn between duty and doubt, agreed to send Enki to Earth, accompanied by 50 heroes and the pilot Anzu. Alalu's message had reignited old rivalries, setting the stage for a confrontation that would test the bonds of loyalty and power. When Enki arrived, splashing down in the marshes near Alalu's outpost, he was greeted with a mix of respect and suspicion. Alalu, still claiming the title of commander, welcomed Enki as a son, but his eyes betrayed his fear of losing control. Enki, ever diplomatic, declared himself Earth's commander, a move that stung Alalu, but was accepted by the assembled heroes. Together, they established Eridu, a settlement that would become the heart of the Anunnaki's mission. Alalu, relegated to a secondary role, watched as Enki's ingenuity transformed the marshes into a hub of activity, extracting gold from the waters and laying the foundations for civilization. Yet, Alalu's ambition could not be contained. He yearned to reclaim his throne, to return to Nibiru as its savior. When Anu, the king, arrived on Earth to assess the mission, Alalu saw his chance. In a council at Eridu, he challenged Anu's right to rule, citing his discovery of gold as proof of his worth. Anu, calm but resolute, proposed a second wrestling match to settle the dispute. The two faced off, their bodies locked in a struggle that echoed their past. Anu prevailed, pinning Alalu to the ground, his foot pressed against the fallen king's chest. In a moment of desperation, Alalu committed a shocking act the bit off Anu's manhood, swallowing it in a final act of defiance. The council was horrified. Enlil, Anu's son and commander of the mission, demanded Alalu's death, his voice ringing with righteous fury. Enki, torn between loyalty to his father and his bond with Alalu, his father-in-law, pleaded for mercy. He argued that the act, though heinous, carried its own punishment. The poison of Anu's essence would consume Alalu from within. Anu, racked with pain but guided by wisdom, proposed a different fate: exile. Alalu would not die on Earth or Nibiru, but would be sent to Lamu, the Red Planet, to live out his days alone. It was a sentence both merciful and cruel, sparing his life but condemning him to isolation. The journey to Lamu was a somber affair. Anu, recovering from his wounds, boarded a celestial chariot with Alalu, his hands bound as a prisoner. The pilot Nungal guided the vessel, circling Earth's moon before approaching the Red Planet. Lamu, as the Anunnaki called Mars, was a world of stark beauty, its mountains and valleys carved by ancient waters now long gone. Its atmosphere, thinner than Earth's, offered a harsh refuge, but Enki had once paused there, noting its potential as a way station. Anu, reflecting on this, decided that Lamu would be Alalu's prison, a place where he could count his days in solitude. Anzu, the pilot who had accompanied Enki to Earth, made a surprising choice. Moved by Alalu's plight, he volunteered to join him in exile. "I shall stay with Alalu," Anzu declared, "to protect him until his final day." Let it be said that Anzu, against all odds, was a companion to a king in exile. Anu, touched by Anzu's loyalty, granted his request, promising that if he survived, he would be named Master of Lamu on a future journey. With eagles' helmets and fish suits, Alalu and Anzu descended in a sky chamber, landing by a lakeside where Enki had once paused. The chariot departed, leaving them alone on the Red Planet, their fate sealed by the stars. Alalu's exile was a time of solitude and reflection. The poison within him, born of his act against Anu, grew like a burden, swelling his body and sapping his strength. He wandered the rocky plains of Lamu, his eyes fixed on the distant Earth, a blue jewel in the sky. Anzu, ever faithful, tended to him, building a shelter from the planet's stones and recording their days in a log that would later be found by Anunnaki explorers. Alalu, once a king who united a planet, now faced his mortality in silence, his dreams of glory reduced to dust. Yet, in his final moments, he found a measure of peace. He spoke to Anzu of Nibiru, of the gold that would save their people, and of the legacy he hoped to leave behind. When Alalu's end came, Anzu honored him as a king. Using the tools of their sky chamber, he carved a tomb from the red rock of Lamu, shaping it to resemble Alalu's fascia monument to a fallen ruler. This structure, described in ancient texts as a rock half to resemble Alalu's visage, would later become a source of mystery, its weathered features sparking tales of a face on Mars. Anzu, alone now, buried his companion and prepared to face his own fate, determined to make his name as a hero who stood by a king in exile. His loyalty, recorded in the Anunnaki's chronicles, would echo through the ages, a testament to the bonds that endure even in the face of divine strife. On Earth, the news of Alalu's exile and death sent ripples through the Anunnaki ranks. Enki, who had pleaded for his life, mourned the loss of his father-in-law, seeing in Alalu's fate a warning of the costs of ambition. Enlil, ever pragmatic, viewed it as justice, a necessary step to maintain order. Anu, returning to Nibiru, carried the weight of his decision, knowing that Alalu's discovery had saved their world but at the cost of his own. The humans, unaware of the drama unfolding on Lamu, continued their toil, their stories of gods and kings growing richer with each generation. Alalu's exile marked a turning point in the Anunnaki's mission. His discovery of gold had brought them to Earth, setting in motion the creation of mankind and the rise of civilization. Yet, his fall revealed the fragility of their divine order, a hierarchy built on power and prone to betrayal. The tomb on Lamu, gazing silently at the stars, stood as a reminder of the price of ambition, a king who had sought salvation but found only solitude. As humanity forged ahead, building new cities and new dreams, the story of Alalu lingered, a whisper of a time when gods walked among men, their triumphs and tragedies shaping the course of history. The exile and death of Alalu on the red sands of Lamu marked a somber chapter in the Anunnaki's saga, a tale of ambition and sacrifice that echoed across the cosmos. Yet, as humanity rebuilt from the ruins of Sumer and the Deluge, the legacy of the Anunnaki endured not only in their divine conflicts but in the marvels they left behind. Their technology, far beyond the comprehension of the early humans, was the cornerstone of their mission on Earth. From celestial chariots that soared through the heavens to crystalline devices that reshaped life itself, the Anunnaki's tools were a testament to their mastery over science and the cosmos. These advancements, woven into the myths of ancient civilizations, raise questions about the true origins of human progress and the secrets that may still lie buried in the sands of time. The Anunnaki's technology was born on Nibiru, a planet whose 3,600-year orbit demanded innovations to survive its extremes of heat and cold. Their civilization, older than Earth's by eons, had mastered the manipulation of matter and energy, creating devices that blurred the line between science and magic. At the heart of their technological prowess were the Mi, a collection of divine knowledge encoded on crystalline discs. These discs, described as glowing with an inner light, contained the blueprints of civilization laws, mathematics, agriculture, architecture, and more. Enki, the master scientist, was their chief guardian, entrusted with sharing fragments of this knowledge with humanity, a decision that would spark both progress and conflict. When the Anunnaki arrived on Earth 445,000 years ago, they brought their technology with them, transforming the primitive landscape into a hub of cosmic activity. Their first outpost, Eridu, was not just a settlement but a technological marvel. At its core was a command center, a complex of structures powered by Firestone's crystalline devices that harnessed energy from unknown sources. These Firestones, described in ancient texts as humming with a radiant glow, were the heart of the Anunnaki's operations, driving everything from their mining tools to their communication systems. The command center linked Earth to Nibiru via beams of light, allowing instant contact across the vastness of space, a feat that would remain unimaginable to humans for millennia. The most striking of their creations were the celestial chariots, spacecraft that defied the limits of Earth's atmosphere. These vessels, piloted by skilled Anunnaki like Anzu and Abgal, were described as gleaming with a reddish brilliance, their hulls clad in materials that withstood the rigors of space travel. The chariots navigated the Hammered Bracelet, the asteroid belt that guarded the inner solar system, using water thrusters that propelled them with the force of 1,000 heroes. Their interiors were equipped with tablets of destinies, crystalline devices that computed orbits and guided the ships through the heavens. When Alalu first splashed down in Earth's oceans, it was in such a chariot, its technology allowing him to traverse the stars and claim Earth as a new frontier. The Anunnaki's mining operations showcased their engineering prowess. In Eridu's marshes, they deployed devices that sucked water through crystal jars, separating metals like gold, copper, and iron with a precision that baffled the early humans. These jars, powered by the same firestones that drove their chariots, were works of art, their surfaces etched with symbols that glowed in the dark. When Enki discovered the richer veins of the Abzu in Southeast Africa, he designed new tools for deep mining, machines that could bore into the Earth's crust and extract gold from rock and soil. These devices, operated by both Anunnaki and their human laborers, transformed the landscape, leaving behind traces that some believe are still visible in ancient African mines. Perhaps the most profound of their technologies was their mastery of genetic engineering. Enki and Ninhursag, working in a laboratory beneath Eridu, used techniques that wove together the essence of Earth's hominids and the Anunnaki's own genetic material. The process, described in texts like the Eridu Genesis, involved crystalline chambers that pulsed with energy, aligning the building blocks of life with a precision that modern science is only beginning to grasp. The creation of Adamu and Tiamat, the first humans, was not a random act but a calculated experiment, guided by the me and executed with tools that manipulated the very fabric of existence. This technology, Enki later wrote, was both a gift and a burden, for it gave life to a new race but also set the stage for divine conflict. The Anunnaki's weapons of terror, used in the nuclear catastrophe that destroyed Sumer, were another chilling aspect of their technology. These devices, forbidden by their own laws, were relics of Nibiru's ancient wars, capable of unleashing destruction on a scale that could unmake entire cities. Described as clad in dread and splendor, they emitted a blinding light and a poisonous wind, their power drawn from the same crystalline technology that powered the chariots and mining tools. Enki, who opposed their use, described them as a perversion of the Anunnaki's knowledge, a tool meant for creation turned to annihilation. The decision to deploy them, driven by Ninurta and Nergal, revealed the dual nature of their technology, capable of building worlds or destroying them. Beyond Earth, the Anunnaki's technology extended to Lamu, the planet we call Mars. Enki had identified it as a potential way station, its thin atmosphere and ancient waterways offering a foothold for their operations. The Anunnaki established a base there, complete with landing platforms and shelters powered by firestones. Alalu's tomb, carved to resemble his face, was a testament to their ability to shape even the harshest environments. The structure, described in ancient texts, has fueled speculation about the face on Mars, a formation photographed by NASA's Viking probes in 1976. Was it a natural anomaly, or a deliberate marker left by the Anunnaki, a sign of their presence in the solar system? The me, the crystalline discs of divine knowledge, were the linchpin of the Anunnaki's technological legacy. Enki, defying Enlil's orders, shared fragments of the me with humanity, teaching them the arts of civilization. In Eridu, priests and scribes learned to write, their clay tablets preserving the first records of human history. The me included instructions for building ziggurats, stepped pyramids that aligned with the stars, and canals that tamed the rivers of the Edin. These structures, from the ziggurats of Ur to the pyramids of Giza, suggest a level of precision that some attribute to Anunnaki influence. The alignment of Giza's pyramids with Orion, for instance, mirrors the Anunnaki's knowledge of the heavens, hinting at a technology that transcended human understanding. The Anunnaki's communication systems were equally advanced. Their crystalline communicators, capable of beaming messages across the solar system, allowed instant contact between Earth, Lamu, and Nibiru. These devices, powered by firestones, used beams of light to transmit words and images, a technology that prefigured modern telecommunications by millennia. Enki's messages to Anu, sent from Eridu to Nibiru, were carried by these beams, ensuring that the council could oversee the Earth mission from afar. The humans, witnessing these glowing devices, wove them into their myths, describing gods who spoke through light and commanded the heavens. The Anunnaki's technology also extended to their observation of the cosmos. Their savants, trained in the ways of the stars, used crystalline instruments to track the orbits of planets and the cycle of Nibiru. Enki's son, Ningishida, known in Egypt as Thoth, was a master of this art, his knowledge shaping the calendars and astronomical tables of ancient civilizations. The Sumerian king lists, preserved in the Ashmolean Museum, reflect this precision, their reigns measured in Shahs the 3,600-year cycles of Nibiru. These records suggest that the Anunnaki's technology allowed them to predict cosmic events, from Nibiru's return to the gravitational shifts that triggered the deluge. As the Anunnaki withdrew from Earth, their technology became the stuff of legend. The humans, left to rebuild after the deluge and the nuclear catastrophe, inherited fragments of this knowledge. The ziggurats, temples, and canals they built were echoes of the Me, their construction guided by the priests trained by Enki. Yet, much of the Anunnaki's technology was lost, sealed away in hidden chambers, or carried back to Nibiru. Enki's tablets, etched on lapis lazuli, spoke of these marvels, describing devices that could harness the power of the stars and reshape life itself. These tablets, hidden in a golden chest, were meant for a future when humanity might be ready to reclaim this knowledge. The legacy of the Anunnaki's technology raises profound questions. Were the great monuments of antiquity, the pyramids, Stonehenge, the ziggurats built with their guidance? Did their crystalline devices, now lost to time, hold the key to technologies we are only beginning to rediscover? The stories of Sumer, Egypt, and beyond speak of gods who wielded powers beyond human ken, their tools shaping the course of history. As humanity forged ahead, building empires from the ruins, the echo of the Anunnaki's technology lingered, a whisper of a time when the line between science and divinity was blurred, and the future of our world was written in the stars. The advanced technology of the Anunnaki, with its crystalline marvels and celestial chariots, had left an indelible mark on Earth, shaping the rise of human civilization and the myths that would endure for millennia. From the creation of mankind in Eridu to the catastrophic deluge and the nuclear devastation of Sumer, the Anunnaki's actions had woven a complex tapestry of triumph and tragedy. Yet, beneath the surface of these earth-shaking events lay a deeper question, one that haunted both gods and mortals. Were these moments the result of immutable fate, or were they shaped by the choices of those who wielded divine power? Enki, the creator of humanity, grappled with this question, his reflections on fate and destiny forming a philosophy that would guide his actions and leave a legacy etched in the tablets of lapis lazuli. As humanity rebuilt from the ruins, this philosophy offered a lens through which to understand the past and glimpse the future, a meditation on the forces that govern gods and men alike. Enki's musings on fate and destiny were born in the aftermath of the Great Deluge, a time when the Anunnaki's mission on Earth teetered on the edge of collapse. The flood, meant to erase humanity, had been thwarted by Enki's defiance, his act of saving Ziusudra a rebellion against the council's decree. As he stood in Eridu, watching the survivors rebuild, Enki pondered the nature of their survival. Was it fated that humanity should endure, or was it a product of his own will, a bending of the cosmic order? These questions, recorded in his autobiography, became a cornerstone of his philosophy, a way to make sense of the chaos that had engulfed both Earth and Nibiru. To Enki, fate was like the orbit of Nibiru, a path fixed by the laws of the cosmos. Nibiru's 3,600-year cycle, its journey from the sun's warmth to the cold of deep space, was immutable, a rhythm that governed the Anunnaki's existence. Fate, in this sense, was the unyielding structure of the univerplanetary orbits, the rise and fall of stars, the ebb and flow of time. It was the framework within which all life operated, a force that even the gods could not defy. The deluge, Enki believed, was not fated in this absolute sense. It was a consequence of Enlil's fear and the council's decision, a disaster that could have been avoided had different choices been made. Destiny, however, was another matter. Enki saw destiny as malleable, shaped by the will of gods and mortals. Unlike fate, which was rigid and predetermined, destiny was a tapestry woven from choices, actions, and intentions. The creation of mankind, for instance, was a product of Enki's deliberate act to solve the Anunnaki's labor shortage and give life to a new race. His decision to save Ziusudra from the flood was another act of destiny, a choice that defied the council's will and altered the course of history. Enki believed that destiny was the realm of free will, where gods and humans could shape their futures, even within the constraints of fate. This distinction between fate and destiny became a guiding principle for Enki as he navigated the Anunnaki's conflicts on Earth. The nuclear catastrophe that destroyed Sumer, triggered by Ninurta and Nergal's use of forbidden weapons, was a stark example of destiny gone astray. Enki, who had opposed the decision, saw it as a failure of choice, a moment when the gods succumbed to pride and vengeance rather than wisdom. In his tablets, he wrote, "The great calamity was not fated, but a destiny forged by ill hearts. What was destined by the heart, for good or ill, shall be judged." To Enki, the catastrophe was a lesson in accountability, a reminder that even gods were responsible for the paths they chose. Enki's philosophy was not just a personal reflection but a message to humanity. He believed that the humans, his creations, inherited the same capacity for destiny. By sharing the mytho-divine knowledge of civilization, he had given them the tools to shape their own futures. The priests and scribes of Sumer, trained in the arts of writing and astronomy, were the first to grasp this truth. They recorded Enki's teachings, weaving them into the myths of their people. The Epic of Gilgamesh, for instance, speaks of a hero who defies fate to seek eternal life, a story that echoes Enki's belief in the power of choice. The Atrahasis, another ancient text, tells of humanity's survival against the gods' will, a testament to the destiny Enki had forged. Yet, Enki's philosophy also carried a warning. Destiny, while malleable, was not without limits. The cycle of Nibiru, the cosmic rhythm that governed the Anunnaki's mission, was a reminder that fate set boundaries even gods could not cross. Enki foresaw a time when Nibiru's return would bring a day of judgment, a moment when the choices of gods and mortals would be weighed. In his tablets, he described this as a day of re-entering, when the earth would tremble, rivers would shift, and the heavens would burn with fire. This prophecy, etched in lapis lazuli, was both a promise and a challenger call to humanity to rise above the mistakes of their creators and forge a destiny worthy of the stars. The humans, rebuilding in the wake of the Deluge and the nuclear catastrophe, embraced Enki's philosophy in their own way. The priests of Sumer, trained by his initiates, saw themselves as keepers of destiny, their writings a bridge between the mortal and the divine. They taught that the gods, though powerful, were not infallible. Their conflicts had nearly destroyed the world, but their gifts had also given it life. This duality, creation and destruction, fate and destiny, became a central theme in the myths of Sumer, Babylon, and beyond. The Hebrews, centuries later, would echo this in their tales of a god who both judged and saved, a reflection of Enki's complex legacy. Enki's reflections on fate and destiny also shaped his interactions with the Anunnaki. His rivalry with Enlil, rooted in their differing visions for humanity, was a clash of destinies. Enlil believed in a rigid order, where humans served as obedient laborers within the framework of fate. Enki, by contrast, saw humanity as a partner in destiny, capable of growth and change. This philosophical divide fueled their conflicts. From the Deluge to the nuclear catastrophe, each event a test of their competing visions. Enki's decision to share the me with humanity was a bold act of destiny, one that Enlil saw as a betrayal of the cosmic order. As the Anunnaki withdrew from Earth, their presence fading into myth, Enki's philosophy endured. The humans, now scattered across the land, carried his teachings in their stories and rituals. The ziggurats of Sumer, aligned with the stars, were more than temples. They were symbols of humanity's reach for destiny, a testament to their potential to transcend fate. The priests, acting as intermediaries between gods and men, became prophets of destiny, interpreting omens and guiding their people toward a future shaped by choice. Enki, in his final days on Earth, entrusted his tablets to Adapa, his chosen scribe, with instructions to preserve them for a time when humanity would be ready to understand. The philosophy of fate and destiny, as articulated by Enki, raises profound questions that linger to this day. Were the great events of history, the rise of Sumer, the Deluge, the nuclear catastrophe, fated, or were they the result of choices made by gods and men? Did the Anunnaki, with their advanced knowledge, foresee the consequences of their actions? or were they as bound by destiny as their human creations? The tablets, sealed in their golden chest, offer no final answers, but they challenge us to consider our own place in the cosmic order. As Nibiru's cycle continues, its return drawing ever closer, Enki's philosophy reminds us that destiny is not a gift, but a responsibility, a call to shape the future with wisdom and courage. The philosophy of fate and destiny, as articulated by Enki, lingered in the hearts of the humans who rebuilt their world from the ashes of Sumer and the Deluge. His teachings, passed down through priests and scribes, shaped the emerging civilizations, their stories of gods and mortals forming the bedrock of human culture. Yet, these stories were not mere oral traditions. They were meticulously recorded on clay tablets, stone carvings, and papyrus scrolls, preserving the Anunnaki's legacy in the written word. Among these records were texts of profound significance, some known to history, others shrouded in mystery, so-called lost books that hinted at truths too dangerous or too sacred to be revealed. These ancient writings, from the clay tablets of Sumer to the fabled archives of Alexandria, hold the key to understanding the Anunnaki's influence on Earth, raising questions about what knowledge has been preserved and what has been deliberately hidden from the world. The Sumerians, the first civilization to emerge under the Anunnaki's guidance, were the pioneers of writing, their cuneiform script one of the earliest known systems of recording history. In cities like Eridu, and Nippur, scribes trained in the Metha divine knowledge gifted by Enki etched their stories onto clay tablets, creating a vast archive of human and divine deeds. These texts, such as the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Atrahasis, told of creation, the deluge, and the gods' conflicts, their narratives blending myth with memory. The Eridu Genesis, a tablet said to be part of the Mohen collection, detailed Enki's creation of mankind, while others recorded the nuclear catastrophe that devastated Sumer. These writings were not mere stories. They were a bridge between the mortal and the divine, a record of a time when gods walked among men. Yet, the Sumerian texts were only the beginning. As the Anunnaki's influence spread, their stories were carried to other cultures, each adapting the tales to their own beliefs. In Babylon, the Enuma Elish celebrated Marduk's rise, echoing his rebellion against Enlil's authority. In Egypt, the Book of the Secrets of Thoth, attributed to Enki's son Ningishida, spoke of divine knowledge hidden in underground chambers. The Hebrews, centuries later, wove these narratives into their sacred texts, with stories of creation, the flood, and the Tower of Babel reflecting Sumerian origins. These connections, preserved across cultures, suggest a shared memory of the Anunnaki's presence, their influence encoded in the myths of the ancient world. The lost books add a layer of mystery to this legacy. Ancient texts often reference writings that have vanished from history, their existence known only through fragments or citations. The Book of Jasher, mentioned in the Hebrew Bible, is described as a chronicle of righteousness, detailing the generations from Adam to Noah. The Book of the Wars of Yahweh, another biblical reference, hints at divine conflicts that mirror the Anunnaki's struggles. The Book of Enoch, an apocryphal text, contains fragments believed to derive from an earlier Book of Noah, recounting visions of celestial beings and cosmic judgments. These lost books, if they ever existed, could hold secrets about the Anunnaki's role in shaping human history, their absence fueling speculation about deliberate concealment. The Mohen collection, as described by Ryan Mohen, claims to include fragments of these lost texts, preserved in a private archive in Liechtenstein. Among them are tablets said to contain Enki's autobiography, dictated to his scribe Adapa over 40 days and nights. These tablets, etched on lapis lazuli, recount the Anunnaki's arrival, the creation of mankind, and the cataclysms that followed. Mohen's narrative suggests that these texts were hidden to protect their knowledge, perhaps by the Rothschilds, whose wealth and influence could conceal such treasures. The absence of these tablets from public view raises questions. Were they destroyed, lost to time, or deliberately suppressed to keep humanity ignorant of its origins? The destruction of the Library of Alexandria adds weight to this mystery. Founded in the 3rd century BC by Ptolemy, Alexander the Great's general, the library was a beacon of knowledge, housing over 500,000 scrolls from across the ancient world. Its collections included translations of the Hebrew Bible, Egyptian chronicles, and Babylonian records, many of which may have referenced the Anunnaki. The library's destruction, through fires and conquests from 48 BC to the Arab conquest in AD 642, obliterated countless texts, leaving only fragments preserved by chance. The Egyptian priest Manetho, commissioned to chronicle Egypt's history, spoke of divine reigns lasting thousands of years before the pharaohs, a timeline that aligns with the Anunnaki's presence. The Babylonian priest Berossus, in his 3-volume history, described gods descending from the heavens 432,000 years before the Deluge, their knowledge recorded on stone tablets hidden in the ancient city of Sippar. Sippar, one of the original Anunnaki cities, was said to house a library of pre-diluvial texts, preserved for safekeeping before the flood. These tablets, according to Berossus, were buried to protect them from destruction, their location known only to a select few. The discovery of similar archives in Nineveh, where 25,000 clay tablets were unearthed in the 19th century, confirms the existence of such records. The Assyrian king Ashurbanipal, a collector of ancient texts, boasted of reading intricate tablets in Sumerian and understanding enigmatic words from before the flood. These findings hint at a vast body of knowledge, much of which remains lost, its secrets perhaps hidden in places like Sippar or the fabled vaults of the Mohen collection. The lost books, whether real or legendary, carry a weight of possibility. They suggest that the Anunnaki's influence was not limited to Sumer, but extended across the ancient world, their stories shaping the beliefs of Egypt, Babylon, and beyond. The Book of Thoth, for instance, was said to contain the secrets of divine knowledge, hidden by Ningish cedar in a subterranean chamber. A papyrus from the reign of Pharaoh Khufu mentions this text, its existence tantalizingly close yet out of reach. Similarly, the biblical references to lost books like the Book of the Generations of Adam imply a deeper history, one that connects the Hebrew patriarchs to the Sumerian kings who ruled under Anunnaki guidance. The absence of these texts has sparked speculation about their fate. Were they destroyed in the fires of Alexandria, or did they survive in hidden archives, guarded by those with the power to conceal them? The Mohen collection, if it exists, could be one such archive. Its tablets are linked to the Anunnaki's truth. Yet, the lack of verifiable evidence raises doubts. Ryan Mohen's claim of studying the collection for over 3 decades, with access granted by the Rothschilds, is compelling but unconfirmed. The Rothschilds' history as collectors of art and antiquities lends some plausibility, but their documented philanthropy-donating treasures to museums like the Louvre suggests they would share rather than hide such knowledge. The mystery of the lost books extends beyond their physical existence to their content. Enki's tablets, as described by Mohen, speak of a time when gods and mortals walked together, their stories intertwined. They describe the creation of mankind, the deluge, and the nuclear catastrophe, but they also hint at a prophesy a day when Nibiru's return would reveal the truth. These texts, if real, could challenge our understanding of history, suggesting that the myths of ancient civilizations were not mere stories but memories of an extraterrestrial presence. The Epic of Gilgamesh, with its tale of a hero seeking eternal life, and the Atrahasis, with its account of the flood, carry echoes of this truth, their narratives rooted in the Anunnaki's actions. As humanity forged ahead, building empires from the ruins of Sumer, the lost books became a symbol of what might have been. The priests of Babylon, the sages of Egypt, and the prophets of Israel all drew on a shared heritage, their writings reflecting the Anunnaki's legacy. Yet, the absence of these texts left gaps in the story, spaces filled with speculation and wonder. Were the lost books destroyed to protect humanity from truths too profound, or were they preserved in secret, awaiting a time when the world would be ready? Enki, in his final writings, spoke of a future when the chosen ones would uncover his tablets, their words a witness to the past and a guide to the future. As the cycle of Nibiru continues, the mystery of the lost books endures, a call to seek the truths hidden in the shadows of history. The ancient texts of Sumer, Babylon, and beyond, with their tales of gods and lost books, carried the echoes of a time when the Anunnaki shaped humanity's destiny. These writings, etched on clay and stone, preserve the legacy of their divine presence, their conflicts, and their gifts to mankind. At the heart of this legacy stood Enki, the master scientist and creator of humanity, whose compassion and vision set him apart from his peers. Yet, Enki's role extended beyond creation and rebellion. He was also a chronicler, a keeper of truths, who entrusted his story to a chosen scribe. Through this act, Enki ensured that the Anunnaki's saga would endure, a record of their triumphs and failures that would guide humanity through the ages. The story of Enki and his scribe, Adapa, is a tale of divine revelation, a bridge between gods and mortals that holds secrets still waiting to be unveiled. In the wake of the Great Deluge and the nuclear catastrophe that ravaged Sumer, Enki stood in Eridu, his heart heavy with the weight of what had transpired. The Anunnaki's mission on Earth, begun with hope and ambition, had been marred by conflict and destruction. Enlil's rigid authority, Marduk's rebellion, and the catastrophic use of forbidden weapons had left scars on the land and its people. Enki, who had defied the council to save humanity, knew that the truth of these events must not be lost. The humans, his creations, deserved to know their origins, to understand the choices that had shaped their world. To preserve this truth, Enki turned to a human he deemed worthy, a man named Adapa, whose intellect and devotion made him the perfect vessel for divine knowledge. Adapa was no ordinary mortal. Descended from the first humans crafted by Enki and Ninhursag, he was a priest-king of Eridu, trained in the sacred Mi. His name, meaning wise one, reflected his mastery of writing, astronomy, and the laws of civilization. Adapa was among the first to receive Enki's teachings, his mind sharpened by the divine knowledge that flowed from the crystalline discs. He was a bridge between the mortal and the divine, a figure revered by his people as a conduit to the gods. Enki saw in him not just a servant but a partner, someone capable of understanding the weight of the Anunnaki's story and preserving it for future generations. In a hidden chamber beneath Eridu, illuminated by the glow of crystalline devices, Enki summoned Adapa. The setting was unlike any Athera scribe's table of polished stone, a stool carved from acacia wood, and a collection of lapis lazuli tablets, their surfaces smooth as skin. A stylus, crafted with a divine crystal tip and an electrum handle, lay ready, its design unlike any used by mortal scribes. Enki's voice, deep and resonant, filled the chamber as he spoke. "Son of Eridu, my faithful servant, I am your lord Enki, and I have called you to record my words. A great calamity has befallen the earth, and I must set down the truth, that gods and mortals may know my hands are pure." Enki's command was clear. Adapa was to write for 40 days and nights, capturing the full scope of the Anunnaki's saga. The number 40 held sacred significance, a reflection of Enki's divine authority among the gods. To sustain Adapa through this task, Enki provided a simple meal of bread and water, infused with a divine essence that would keep him alive without need for further nourishment. As Adapa took his place at the scribe's table, the chamber seemed to hum with energy, the air thick with the weight of revelation. Enki's voice, at times booming with pride, at others soft with sorrow, recounted the story of the Anunnaki from their arrival on Earth to the creation of mankind, the deluge, and the nuclear catastrophe. The tablets, Enki instructed, were to be a testament to the past and a prophecy for the future. Write the correct narrative of the beginnings, the prior times, and the olden times, he said, for in the past, the future lies hidden. Adapa's stylus moved with precision, each stroke capturing Enki's words verbatim. The tablets detailed the Anunnaki's mission to harvest gold, the rebellion of their laborers that led to mankind's creation, and the conflicts that tore them apart. Enki spoke of his rivalry with Enlil, his defiance in saving Ziusudra, and his grief at the destruction of Sumer. He also spoke of Nibiru's cycle, the 3,600-year orbit that would one day bring the gods back to Earth, a moment of judgment for all. Adapa's role as scribe was more than mechanical. It was a sacred duty. Enki declared him a chosen spokesperson, tasked not only with recording the truth, but with sharing it with humanity. "Exhort them to do what is right," Enki said, "for in righteousness lies a good and long life." He promised that Adapa would receive guidance through dreams and visions, signs in the heavens that would reveal the path forward. As the 40 days drew to a close, Enki instructed Adapa to seal the tablets in a golden chest, crafted from acacia wood and inlaid with gold. "The chosen ones will come at a predetermined time," Enki said, "and they will find the chest and learn all that I have dictated. It will be a witness to the past and a foreteller of the future, for the first things are also the last." The act of recording was itself a rebellion. Enlil, who sought to control humanity's destiny, would have seen Enki's decision to entrust a human with divine knowledge as a further betrayal. Yet, Enki believed that truth was a gift, a spark that could ignite humanity's potential. Adapa, as his scribe, became the first in a line of prophets, a keeper of wisdom who would guide his people through the ages. The tablets, hidden away in their golden chest, were a legacy for a future when humanity might be ready to confront its origins. Enki's vision was clear. The humans, born of his ingenuity, were not just laborers but partners in a cosmic destiny, capable of shaping their own path. The story of Enki and Adapa echoed beyond Eridu, finding its way into the myths of Sumer and other cultures. The Hebrews, centuries later, told of Moses receiving the commandments on Mount Sinai, writing on stone tablets for 40 days and nights, a narrative that mirrors Enki's dictation to Adapa. The Book of Enoch, an apocryphal text, speaks of a mortal taken to the heavens to record divine secrets, a figure some believe was inspired by Adapa. These parallels suggest that Enki's role as a chronicler was not forgotten, his act of preserving the truth a beacon for future generations. As the Anunnaki withdrew from Earth, their presence fading into myth, Adapa's role as scribe took on new significance. The humans, rebuilding their world, relied on the teachings of their priests and scribes, who carried forward Enki's legacy. The ziggurats, aligned with the stars, became centers of learning, where the me was studied and the stories of the gods were told. Adapa's descendants, the keepers of the tablets, became the first prophets, their visions guiding humanity through the rise of new empires. Enki's words, sealed in the golden chest, awaited discovery, a promise that the truth would one day be revealed. The role of the scribe, as embodied by Adapa, was a testament to Enki's faith in humanity. By choosing a mortal to record his story, Enki bridged the gap between gods and men, entrusting his creations with the power to shape their own destiny. The tablets, hidden somewhere in the sands of time, hold the promise of revelation, a record of the Anunnaki's triumphs, failures, and the cosmic forces that bind them to humanity. As Nibiru's cycle continues, its return drawing ever closer, the story of Enki and his scribe remains a call to seek the truth, to uncover the secrets of our origins, and to embrace the destiny that lies within our grasp. The story of Enki and his scribe Adapa, etched on lapis lazuli tablets, preserved the Anunnaki's legacy as a beacon for humanity's future, a testament to their divine influence on Earth. As the humans rebuilt their world, guided by the knowledge Enki had shared, the Anunnaki's presence began to fade, their celestial chariots departing for the stars. Yet their mission extended beyond Earth, reaching into the cosmos to a red planet they called Lamu, known to us as Mars. This barren world, with its towering mountains and ancient riverbeds, was more than a distant outpost. It was a vital way station in the Anunnaki's interstellar network, a stepping stone between Earth and Nibiru. The story of Lamu, marked by Alalu's exile and death, is a tale of exploration, sacrifice, and mystery, raising questions about the Anunnaki's cosmic ambitions and the secrets that may still lie hidden on the red planet's surface. Lamu first entered the Anunnaki's story during their initial journey to Earth, 445,000 years ago, As their celestial chariots navigated the hammered bracelet, the asteroid belt guarding the inner solar system, they paused to assess the planets along their path. Enki, the master scientist, noted Lamu's potential early on. Unlike Earth, with its dense atmosphere and teeming life, Lamu was stark, its thin air and dry landscapes offering a harsh but viable refuge. Its surface, scarred by ancient waters and towering volcanoes, held traces of resources that could support the Anunnaki's mission. Enki, ever forward-thinking, envisioned Lamu as a way station, a midpoint where chariots could refuel and rest on their long journeys between Nibiru and Earth. The establishment of a base on Lamu was a feat of engineering that showcased the Anunnaki's advanced technology. Their chariots, powered by firestones and crystalline thrusters, landed by a lakeside, where remnants of ancient waterways offered a source of sustenance. The Anunnaki constructed shelters from the planet's red rock, their structures designed to withstand the biting cold and thin atmosphere. These shelters, equipped with life-sustaining systems, were powered by the same firestones that drove their mining operations on Earth. A landing platform, aligned with the stars, facilitated the comings and goings of their vessels, ensuring that Lamu could serve as a hub for their interstellar travels. Alalu's exile to Lamu, as decreed by Anu after their fateful wrestling match, brought the red planet into sharp focus. Alalu, once king of Nibiru, had discovered gold on Earth, but his act of defiance biting off Anu's manhood sealed his fate. Rather than death, Anu chose exile, sending Alalu to Lamu to live out his days in solitude. The journey, undertaken in a celestial chariot piloted by Nungol, was a somber affair. Alalu, bound as a prisoner, gazed upon Earth's blue-green splendor one last time before the chariot circled the moon and approached Lamu's red expanse. The planet's rugged terrain, with its sky-high mountains and deep valleys, loomed before them, a stark contrast to the lush marshes of Eridu. Anzu, the pilot who had accompanied Enki to Earth, made a profound choice to join Alalu in exile. Moved by loyalty and a desire to make his name, Anzu declared, "I shall stay with Alalu until he dies," a companion to a king in exile. Anu, touched by this act, promised Anzu that if he survived, he would be named Master of Lamu on a future journey. Equipped with eagles' helmets and fish suits, Alalu and Anzu descended in a sky chamber, landing near the site Enki had once explored. The chariot departed, leaving them alone on the red planet, their shelter a solitary outpost amidst the barren landscape. Alalu's final days were marked by the poison within him, a consequence of his act against Anu, but Anzu's presence offered solace, a reminder of the bonds that endure even in exile. When Alalu died, Anzu honored him with a tomb carved from Lamu's rock, its features shaped to resemble the fallen king's face. This monument, described in ancient texts as a rock half to resemble Alalu's visage, stood as a testament to his legacy, a marker of the Anunnaki's presence on a distant world. The tomb, gazing at the stars, became a source of mystery, its weathered features sparking tales of a face on Mars. Centuries later, when human probes like NASA's Viking 1 photographed a formation in the Cydonia region, some saw in it the echo of Alalu's tomb, a haunting reminder of the Anunnaki's reach. Was it a natural anomaly, or a deliberate creation meant to signal their presence across the cosmos? Lamu's role as a way station was critical to the Anunnaki's mission. The planet's thin atmosphere, though challenging, offered advantages. Its lower gravity made it an ideal stop for chariots carrying gold from Earth to Nibiru, reducing the strain on their thrusters. The base, equipped with crystalline communicators, allowed the Anunnaki to maintain contact with both worlds, relaying messages and coordinating their efforts. Enki, who had first identified Lamu's potential, envisioned it as a hub for future missions, a place where resources could be stored and ships repaired. The way station's strategic location, near the hammered bracelet, made it a vital link in their interstellar network, a bridge between the blue world of Earth and the red glow of Nibiru. The Anunnaki's operations on Lamu were not without challenges. The planet's harsh conditions, freezing nights, dust storms, and scarce water tested their technology and resolve. Their shelters, powered by firestones, maintained a delicate balance, sustaining life in an environment hostile to it. Ancient texts hint at other structures on Lamu, perhaps pyramids or platforms aligned with celestial patterns, similar to those on Earth. These structures, if they existed, could have served as beacons or storage sites, their purpose lost to time. The discovery of formations like the D and M pyramid in Cydonia, photographed by modern probes, fuels speculation that the Anunnaki left behind more than Alalu's tomb, their technology shaping the planet's surface in ways we are only beginning to understand. As the Anunnaki's mission on Earth wound down, Lamu's role as a way station faded. The gold harvested from Earth stabilized Nibiru's atmosphere, and many Anunnaki returned to their homeworld, leaving their outposts behind. Lamu, once a bustling hub, became a silent relic, its shelters and platforms buried under centuries of dust. Yet, the story of Lamu endured in the Anunnaki's records, preserved by Enki's scribe Adapa. The tablets, sealed in their golden chest, spoke of the Red Planet as a place of exile and exploration, a testament to the Anunnaki's ambition to conquer the stars. Alalu's tomb, gazing silently at the heavens, was a reminder of the costs of that ambition, a monument to a king who sought salvation but found solitude. The mystery of Lamu lingers, its secrets buried in the red sands. What do you think? Could the face on Mars be a remnant of the Anunnaki's presence? Or is it just a trick of the light? Share your thoughts in the comments below, or tell us about any strange experiences you've had exploring ancient mysteries. If you've enjoyed this journey into the unknown, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to stay updated with Mystery History for Sleep. Share this video on social media or your favorite forums to spark discussions about our cosmic past. Next time, we'll dive into a chilling question: are the Anunnaki still among us, guiding humanity from the shadows? For now, let this tale be your companion as you unwind before bed, perhaps as a soothing podcast to ease you into sleep. Until then, keep searching for the truth among the stars.